Can a simple circle become a doorway to creativity? I began this experiment with a question that seemed almost too simple. What would happen if I painted flowers using circles as my starting point? I did not begin with a detailed sketch, a specific image in mind, or a plan for how the final artwork should look. I started with circles. My inner critic immediately appeared. It asked questions I have heard many times before. Is this beautiful enough? Does this flower look realistic? Am I doing this correctly? What if the final artwork does not turn out the way I imagined? These questions are familiar to many of us. Sometimes, creativity does not disappear because we have no ideas. It disappears because we overthink before allowing ourselves to begin. So, this time, I decided to remove as many choices as possible. I committed to painting different blooms. Each flower began with a circle, but I allowed the shapes, colors, lines, and patterns to develop naturally. I did not try to make every flower perfect. I did not need every flower to look like a flower that exists in nature. I simply followed the process. One circle became another. One shape suggested a new shape. A simple form slowly transformed into petals, layers, textures, and unexpected movement. As I continued, something began to change. In the beginning, I was conscious of every decision. I was thinking about what I should do next. But after painting several circles, the process began to develop its own rhythm. My hands started moving before my mind had time to analyze everything. I began to respond intuitively rather than intellectually. This was the moment I began to feel something I can only describe as a creative flow state. I was no longer trying to force an idea into existence. I was allowing the idea to emerge through the act of painting. The repetition became a form of meditation. I began to realize that repetition does not necessarily make creativity boring. Sometimes, repetition creates the conditions for creativity to become free. When there are too many choices, the mind can become overwhelmed. We may spend more time deciding what to create than actually creating. But when the choices are gently reduced, something unexpected can happen. The conscious mind has fewer things to control, and the subconscious mind begins to find space to play. This experience reminded me that creativity is not always found through complexity. Sometimes, it is hidden beneath complexity, waiting for us to simplify. By limiting the beginning of each flower to a circle, I was not limiting my creativity. I was removing the pressure to constantly invent something completely new. I no longer needed to ask, what should I create? Instead, I could simply ask, what can this circle become? That question opened an entire world of possibilities. This process also became a form of self-observation. The artwork became a mirror, not because it represented a specific emotion, but because the process revealed how I was relating to myself in that moment. Was I trying to control everything? Was I afraid of making a mistake? Could I allow something to develop without knowing exactly where it was going? These questions became part of the artwork. For me, this is where the therapeutic quality of art begins. It is not necessarily about creating something perfect or producing an image with a specific meaning. Sometimes, the healing happens through the experience of being present with ourselves while we create. For a while, I did not need to solve anything. I did not need to be productive. I did not need to prove that I was talented. I only needed to paint the next circle. And then the next one. Perhaps true creativity is not found in having endless choices. Perhaps it is found in the moment when we stop trying to control every possibility and begin to trust the process. To let go of perfection. To let go of comparison. To let go of the belief that every creative idea must arrive fully formed. I learned that the subconscious mind often speaks quietly. It does not always present us with a clear plan or a perfect concept. Sometimes, it speaks through a small movement of the hand, an unexpected color, a line that changes direction, or a shape that becomes something we never intended to create. We only need to be willing to listen. By the end of this experiment, I realized that the circle had never really been a limitation. It had been a beginning. A simple shape became a flower. A repeated action became meditation. A creative exercise became a conversation with my inner world. And the more I surrendered to the process, the more freely my creativity began to move. Perhaps this is the secret I was searching for. True creativity is not always found in complexity. Sometimes, it is found in simplicity. It is found when we stop demanding that the process produce a perfect result and allow ourselves to simply participate in the act of creating. Sometimes, we do not need more ideas. We need fewer expectations. We need fewer rules. We need a small beginning, and the courage to keep going.